I set up my own OpenClaw instance. I had already previously used Cowork to book a hotel. And really, from a consumer perspective, I think the next leap, because people are using, as McKinsey suggested, the research of ratings and reviews, the comparison of either products or sites, that's all happening into one agentic thing. Really, the gating factor is financial information and credit card information. So I used an agent to book a hotel. It went to the website, entered the dates, it put everything in, but that last step of financial information and clicking buy, I did not do yet. And I think that's coming within 90 days, right? Like, it's hard to imagine. I mean, it's coming for sure this year. This is AI First with Adam and Andy, the show that takes you straight to the front lines of AI innovation and business. I'm Andy Sack, and alongside my co-host, Adam Brotman. Each episode, we bring you candid conversations with business leaders transforming their businesses with AI. No fluff, just real talk, actionable use cases, and insights for you. Today, we're going to be talking about how radical consumer behavior has changed since really the beginning of the year. And it's a result of agents in 2026. I remember a year ago, we had Neil Patel on, and we were talking about GEO, generative engine optimization, replacing SEO.
Right.
And at that time, Neil suggested that consumer behavior hadn't changed that much. But today, consumer behavior is changing, and the way in which consumers are shopping is changing. I think the data said that 70% of US consumers have used at least one AI tool in the past 3 months. And McKinsey has said that the shift in consumer behavior is structural, meaning search, comparison, and consideration have been combined all into one agentic mediated step. So with that, Adam was sharing a story this weekend, and I was like, oh, we should talk about how agents change consumer behavior and whether it's the death of the internet. So Adam, do you want to share what you and Addie did this weekend and what it made you think about?
Yeah, let me share the story, and then let's go back to, I think, the really important questions and points you just made about, like, what does this mean for the internet in general? What does this mean for shopping, SEO, for brands? So last night I was with my daughter, and I had my personal agent that I've created, which I call Jeff. So Jeff and I and Addie were like on the couch, and we were just like talking about shopping and these particular stuffed animals that Addie likes called jelly cats that she's into. And Addie was like, hey, ask your agent which is amazing that she's just so agent native. Like, she's like, ask your agent to help put together a curated list of all the Easter themed jelly cat stuffies for me so I can review them, so I can pester you for which Easter themed jelly cat to buy. And I was like, okay. And I'm just texting on my phone with my agent. And I was just like, hey, Addie wants to do this, and she wants to do this. And the agent goes out and does the research and comes back with like a curated list. And Addie specifically asked for like photos and stuff so she could browse it properly. I did the research, and I put it together in a custom vibe coded web page for you that organizes them, merchandise them with links, with its own custom flair for, knows that Addison likes pink and knows what we were doing. And I just stared at this page. I sent it to you, Andy, and I was like, this is amazing. Not only
And so this was multiple websites, data from multiple websites coming together into a custom e-commerce site for Addie.
Yeah, in particular, in this case, it was mostly focused on the Jellycat website because, but you're right, it is multiple websites, because ones that are out of print, so to speak, that have been retired might be sitting on eBay or StockX. And so it was like doing a broad search and then putting it all together, not just as a report, but as a custom web page that she could shop from effectively. It actually was links back. So, you could go from that custom web page back to those sites. So it wasn't like the sites weren't important. They played a role in both the research stage, and if Addie wanted to or I wanted to buy one of these things, you'd actually click through and still need the site to buy it from at this stage. So, but the shopping experience was conversational with the agent. The agent did all the work. The agent then re-merchandised it separately from how Jellycat would. And the shopping was happening on a custom website, vibe coded by the agent after having done custom research for us, all based on a voice text conversation while we were doing something else together on the couch. And this was just sort of a side note. Hey, Jeff, can you do this thing? So that's the future in a lot of ways of shopping on the internet and of brand interactions on the internet, where there's an agent in the mix, an agent that's customizing for you. And it really changes, I think, how brands have to understand sort of the interaction model online is going to change dramatically. And that means the brand relationship is going to change. And you have to take agents into account in 2026 and beyond in a way I don't think you ever had to in the past.
I agree. When Adam shared that story with me, I mean, he was already talking about the change in consumer behavior. And I was like, yeah, it just makes me think about my own behavior. Again, anecdotal, not to generalize to the broader take it. I set up this weekend, I set up my own OpenClaw instance. I had already previously used Cowork to book a hotel. And really, from a consumer perspective, I think the next leap, because people are using, as McKinsey suggested, the research of ratings and reviews, the comparison of either products or sites, that's all happening into one agentic thing. Really, the gating factor is financial information and credit card information. So I used an agent to book a hotel. It went to the website, entered the dates, it put everything in, but that last step of financial information and clicking buy, I did not do yet. And I think that's coming within 90 days, right? Like it's hard to imagine. I mean, it's coming for sure this year.
Yeah.
So
I think that's true. I have another example that I can give to your point of a friend of mine. She was using Claude Cowork, like you, to do meal planning. And she was like, oh, I just wish I could go that extra step of not just meal planning, but go to Instacart and do my shopping for me, or at least plan, like go help me with like putting everything in my basket on Instacart. And I was like, yeah, why don't you just do the browser extension on Claude Cowork, the Chrome browser extension, and just like go log in for Cowork to Instacart, and it'll just complete the step of all your meal planning. Plus it'll like go to Instacart and get it all ready for you. And then she was like, oh my God, you saved me hours a week by just telling me about, she was already using Cowork, but about the browser extension. And then, but she wasn't, Andy, to your point. I said, oh, did you have it buy it and complete the transaction? She says, no. I told it to like, let me come back in and take over the browser control when it came to the actual buying of it for security reasons and other things. So I do think you're right that like people are not ready to give our credit cards to the agent yet. Although, yeah, this year, I'm guessing people will start to do it. I remember when I was afraid to put our credit card information into the World Wide Web at once upon a time. And then you got over that fear. At some point, enough people did it and enough established companies claimed that it was safe. And your credit card companies would tell you that they'd rebate you if there was fraud. And so, I think we'll get there. And I think that so let's go back and like for our audience, kind of frame up what we're talking about. So let's go back to the beginning of what you said. I read a quote similar to your quotes, stats you gave or research you gave at the beginning, that 2/3 of Gen Zers and more than half of millennials are now using large language models to do research of products. So that's back to the Neil Patel, like SEO versus GEO. Instead of using Google, the old Google, not Google AI overviews, the old Google to do research, people are just turning to an agent, but it's not really it's really just a chatbot, but a chatbot with a tool, in this case, search. And that's the same with Cowork, like that's doing research for you, doing shopping search for you. That's becoming like mainstream, like that part. Okay. The part that's not yet mainstream is a full-on personal agent that knows you, understands your preferences, and can do the kind of things that the example I gave, where it's like going to do the homework and go that next step of putting things in your shopping basket, vibe coding a custom web page that merchandises it for you. Those are from Cowork or OpenClaw. Those are much more agentic than just a research agent chatbot that does the work, but they're all part of that spectrum. And that's happening very rapidly. So if you're a brand, for example, you have to start thinking, how am I showing up in LLM based searches? And one way you can affect that, by the way, which this HBR article that I was reading this weekend and I posted on LinkedIn was saying a really good idea, which is like, just go to Gemini, Claude, and ChatGPT and XAI and whatever, and just type in your brand and just see how it comes up and ask it questions about your brand and see what it says and make sure it's at a minimum when you're actually directly referencing your brand. Is it describing you correctly, et cetera, whatever? Like that's a good thing to know and start making adjustments on. But then secondly, the other practical advice that we're really getting at here is understanding how consumer behavior is changing more broadly around agents. And when you really have an actual agent that can not just research for you and do search for you, but can actually like shop for you and can actually like re-merchandise the web for you in a customized way, like people should be thinking about how that's going to start happening. And what does that mean for your brand marketing? What does that mean for your brand engagement with your customers? Like we have to start thinking about a world of agents. And one of the things that people need to understand is like, are their websites agent friendly? Not just for like the LLM search thing, but also for the things, the examples I just mentioned around Instacart and Jellycat type shopping, where it's like, wait a minute, if there's a custom agent on their side, how do I make it easier for them? Is there an API I can give them? Is there some other door to my website I want to give them to make it easier to do custom stuff for their client on the other side?
Two things I want to highlight as we close this out is that 2026 is the year of the agent. Agents fundamentally change the last 20 to 30 years of consumer behavior on the internet, from consumers browsing to agents doing all that browsing, selection, and filtering, ultimately in purchasing. And that shift, which is why I started this episode saying, is the internet dead? Well, the internet as we knew it may be dying, and it's dying quickly because the rise of the agents in 2026 is happening incredibly fast. So I want to highlight that for the audience. And I think I'd also say that as consumer behavior changes, business models also need to change. And we're going to see that played out really in the next 6 months. That's my concluding comment. Adam, any concluding comments before we wrap?
It'll be interesting to see how this plays into mobile apps, not just the web, and how, like, what does that mean for like my Starbucks app ordering experience and the opportunities there? So this is to your point, when you start going down the rabbit hole of like, if consumers start using real personal agents a lot, which I think we're going to start to see more and more and more, and same with the enterprises, like what are the ripple effects of it? I think that's a conversation we should just keep having and keep highlighting examples of.
Yep, I agree. With that, thank you all for listening to AI First with Adam and Andy. For more resources on how to become AI First, you can visit our website, forum3.com, download case studies, research briefings, executive summaries, and join our email list. We also invite you to connect with our AI First community, a curated hub and network for leaders turning AI hype into action. We truly believe you can't overinvest in your AI learning. Onward.